I, 31F, have been married to my husband Jake, 30M, for 5 years, together for 10. Our story started at university where we were both studying business. I was initially drawn to Jake because of his outgoing personality and natural charm. He was always surrounded by friends, both male and female, and had this amazing ability to make everyone feel special and included. That was one of the main things that attracted me to him, his social nature and how he could brighten any room just by being there. We started dating in our second year after being friends for several months. Jake pursued me persistently, always finding ways to spend time with me and make me feel special. He would wait outside my classes, bring me coffee during late-night study sessions, and always made sure I knew I was his priority. Even though he had many female friends back then, I never felt threatened because he was so transparent about everything. Our dating years were amazing. Jake was the perfect boyfriend, attentive, caring, and completely devoted. He introduced me to his family early on, and they welcomed me with open arms. His mother especially took me under her wing, often telling me how happy she was that her son had found someone who understood him so well. We dated for 5 years before getting married, and during that time, we never had any major issues. Sure, we had normal couples arguments, but nothing we couldn't resolve through communication. The wedding was beautiful, and our first 2 years of marriage were everything I had dreamed of. We bought a small house, adopted a dog, and started planning our future together. Jake was working at a small advertising agency then, and while he had female colleagues, their interactions never bothered me because he always kept things professional and included me in any after-work events. Things started to change about 3 years ago when Jake got a new job at a larger marketing firm. The position came with better pay and more opportunities for advancement, so we were both excited about it. At first, everything seemed fine. Jake would come home excited about his work and tell me about his new colleagues. That's when I first heard about Sarah, 28F, and Rachel, 26F. They were both junior copywriters who had started at the firm around the same time as Jake. Initially, their friendship seemed completely innocent. They would all go out for drinks after work with other colleagues, and Jake would share stories about their workplace drama and jokes. I even met them a few times during company events, and they seemed nice enough. Sarah was married to Tom, and Rachel was engaged to her longtime boyfriend. However, I started noticing subtle changes in Jake's behavior about 6 months into his new job. He began staying late at work more frequently, citing important projects that needed to be finished. While this wasn't unusual in his line of work, what bothered me was how his face would light up whenever he received messages from Sarah or Rachel. He would constantly check his phone during dinner or while we watched TV, claiming they were just sending him funny memes or discussing work. The frequency of these messages started to concern me. It seemed like they were in constant communication, even during weekends and late at night. Whenever I brought this up, Jake would get defensive and accuse me of being paranoid and controlling. He would remind me that I never had issues with his female friends before and suggest that maybe I was the one who had changed. Things came to a head 6 months ago when I discovered that Jake had been meeting Sarah alone for coffee during their lunch breaks. I found out by accident when a mutual friend mentioned seeing them together at a cafe near their office. Jake hadn't told me about these meetings, and when I asked why, he got defensive and said he knew I would overreact. We had a huge fight about it, during which he finally admitted that he enjoyed Sarah's company because she understood him better and didn't constantly question his friendships like I did. I was devastated by this admission. While he insisted nothing physical had happened between them, the emotional connection he described felt like a betrayal. The way he talked about Sarah, how she got him and how comfortable he felt sharing things with her, made me feel like I was being replaced as his confidant. I told him he needed to set clear boundaries with his female coworkers, especially Sarah. He agreed, but his actions didn't match his words. Last month, I discovered he had been deleting messages between him and Sarah. I noticed this because one evening, while using his phone to order dinner, with his permission, I saw a notification from her but couldn't find the conversation when I opened their chat history. This prompted me to check our phone bill, where I found they had been talking for hours during times when he told me he was working late. I also learned from another coworker that they had been meeting for drinks after work, just the two of them, without the rest of their colleagues present. When I confronted Jake about this, he initially tried to deny everything. But as I presented the evidence, he broke down. He admitted that while nothing physical had happened with Sarah, he felt a connection with her that he couldn't explain. He said he loved me but was confused about his feelings. He tried to justify it by saying that Sarah understood the pressures of his job better than I could, and that their conversations were just about work and life in general. But the fact that he had been hiding these interactions from me told a different story. This confession broke me. After 10 years together, 5 of them married, my husband was telling me he had developed feelings for another woman. I packed a bag and went to stay with my sister. I needed time to think about whether I could continue in a marriage where my husband couldn't maintain appropriate boundaries with other women. Now I'm stuck. While part of me wants to fight for our marriage and the life we've built together, another part feels like I'm just setting myself up for more heartbreak. I don't know if I can ever trust him again, knowing how easily he can develop feelings for someone else while being married to me. How do I move forward from here? Update 1 first, I want to thank everyone who commented on my original post. Your support and insights gave me the strength to confront Jake about what I found on the iPad. The conversation and what followed afterward changed everything. After reading all your comments, I decided to confront Jake last Friday evening after he came home from work. I had spent the whole day gathering courage and preparing myself for what I needed to say. I made sure to have screenshots of the iPad search history ready on my phone. When Jake came home, he was in an unusually good mood. He had brought takeout from my favorite restaurant and suggested we watch a movie together. His attempt at being the perfect husband only made what I was about to do harder. I waited until we had finished dinner before bringing up what I had found. The moment I showed him the screenshots of his searches about emotional affairs and his late-night stalking of Sarah's social media, his face changed completely. The cheerful facade dropped, and for a moment, he just sat there in silence, staring at my phone. What happened next shocked me. Instead of denying it or making excuses like he usually did, Jake broke down completely. He started crying, something I had only seen him do twice in our 10 years together. Through his tears, he revealed something that made my stomach turn. Apparently, Sarah had been sending him inappropriate photos of herself for the past month. He claimed he never asked for them and didn't respond, but he also admitted he never told her to stop or blocked her number. When he said this, I felt like I had been punched in the gut. All those times he had been smiling at his phone, was he looking at photos of her? I demanded to see his phone immediately. Jake hesitated, which only confirmed my suspicions that there was more he wasn't telling me. After several minutes of back and forth, with him claiming I was violating his privacy and me pointing out that he had lost the right to privacy when he started hiding things from me, he finally handed over his phone. What I found was far worse than I had imagined. While he technically hadn't been sending inappropriate photos back to Sarah, their text conversations were extremely flirtatious and inappropriate for married people. He had been complimenting her appearance constantly, telling her how beautiful she looked each day at work, how much he missed seeing her when she was out sick, and worst of all, confiding in her about our marriage problems. There were messages where he told her how unhappy he was with me, how I didn't understand him the way she did, and how he felt trapped in our marriage. He even referred to me as controlling and paranoid, the same things he would accuse me of whenever I questioned their relationship. Reading those messages felt like someone was twisting a knife in my heart. When I confronted him about these messages, Jake's reaction made everything even worse. Instead of showing remorse, he tried to turn it around on me. He claimed I had pushed him away with my constant suspicion and that Sarah was just being a supportive friend during a difficult time. He said I was the one who had damaged our marriage with my paranoia and that if I hadn't been so controlling, he wouldn't have needed to confide in someone else. His attempts to blame me for his emotional affair made something snap inside me. Without telling him what I was doing, I took photos of their conversations on my phone and called Sarah's husband, Tom. Jake's reaction when he realized what I was doing was telling. He lunged for my phone, trying to stop me. He wasn't concerned about our marriage or my feelings, he was worried about Sarah. Tom was surprisingly calm when I told him everything. In fact, he thanked me. He revealed that he had suspected something was going on for months, but Sarah had been gaslighting him, using the same tactics Jake had used on me, calling him paranoid, controlling, and insecure. Tom told me Sarah had been staying late at work more often, going out with friends frequently, and being protective of her phone. It was like hearing my own story reflected back at me. After I hung up with Tom, Jake completely lost it. He spent the next several hours trying desperately to reach Sarah, calling and texting her repeatedly. He seemed more concerned about warning her that Tom knew than about fixing things with me. His behavior confirmed what I had suspected. His feelings for her were much deeper than he had admitted. I called my sister to come help me pack some things. I couldn't stay in the house watching my husband panic about another woman. While we were gathering my belongings, my sister found something in Jake's desk drawer, a handwritten letter from Sarah. The letter was like a punch to the gut. In it, Sarah detailed how she was planning to leave Tom and hoped Jake would find the courage to leave me too so they could be together. The letter was dated just 3 weeks ago, right around the time Jake had promised to cut contact with her. Now I'm staying at my sister's place. Jake keeps alternating between calling and texting to apologize and sending angry messages blaming me for ruining everything. Yesterday, his mother called me to tell me I was overreacting and that all men have female friends, She said I was throwing away a good marriage over nothing and that I needed to be more understanding of Jake's need for close friendships. I haven't responded to any of them. I'm trying to process everything that's happened and figure out my next steps. The Jake I thought I knew and loved seems like a stranger to me now. How could he betray my trust like this and then try to make it my fault? I don't know if I can ever move past this, but I know I can't go back to constantly wondering if my husband is falling in love with someone else. Update: 2 things have taken an unexpected and disturbing turn since my last update. A week after I posted my last update, Sarah's husband Tom reached out to me through Facebook. He wanted to meet and compare notes about what we both knew about Jake and Sarah's relationship. I was hesitant at first, but I agreed to meet him for coffee at a local diner. What Tom revealed during our meeting made me realize that the emotional affair between Jake and Sarah went much deeper and had been going on longer than either of us knew. Tom had done some serious digging after our phone call. He had managed to recover deleted emails from their shared computer at home, and what he found was devastating. There were emails going back 6 months where Jake and Sarah had been planning to meet in hotels during supposed business trips that never actually existed. They had created elaborate covers for these planned meetings, fake conferences, client meetings, and team-building exercises. While both of them still maintained nothing physical ever happened, the emails showed they were definitely planning to take their relationship to that level. Tom showed me one particularly painful email where Jake had written to Sarah about feeling trapped in our marriage and how he thought she might be his soulmate. He had even gone as far as looking up apartments in another city where they could start fresh together. Reading those emails made me physically sick. But the most shocking revelation came when Tom shared what he had discovered about Jake's past. Tom works in HR at another company, and he had reached out to some contacts in the industry. He discovered that Jake's sudden departure from his previous job wasn't just about better opportunities like he had told me. He had actually left after a married coworker's husband complained to HR about his inappropriate behavior with his wife. Apparently, Jake had developed a similar emotional relationship with this woman, Lauren, exchanging intimate emails and meeting her alone outside of work. When Lauren's husband found out, he threatened to expose Jake to me and the company. Jake resigned quickly and made me believe it was because he had found a better opportunity at his current company. Armed with this information, I confronted Jake at a coffee shop near my sister's house. I didn't want to meet him alone at home anymore. At first, he tried to deny everything, claiming Tom was making things up to cause problems. But when I showed him copies of the emails Tom had found, his whole demeanor changed. Jake finally broke down and admitted everything. He confessed that he has always struggled with maintaining appropriate boundaries with women. He said he enjoys the thrill of pursuing emotional connections with other women while having the stability of our marriage. He admitted that what happened with Lauren at his previous job was similar to what was happening with Sarah now. What hurt the most was his attempt to justify his behavior. He said he never planned to actually leave me, that these emotional affairs were just his way of feeling alive and appreciated. He still maintained that I was partially to blame for not being more understanding of his need for close female friendships. Even in his confession, he couldn't take full responsibility for his actions. When I brought up Lauren and asked why he had never told me the real reason for leaving his last job, he got defensive. He said he had kept it from me to protect our relationship, but I realized it was more about protecting himself. He had lied to me for years about this, letting me believe he had left his job for better opportunities when in reality he had left to avoid consequences for his inappropriate behavior. His confession made me realize that this pattern would never change. Jake doesn't see these emotional affairs as real cheating. In his mind, as long as nothing physical happens, he's not really being unfaithful. He doesn't understand or doesn't want to understand how his emotional infidelity has destroyed the trust in our marriage. Tom and I have been supporting each other through this ordeal. We've both been struggling with similar feelings of betrayal and self-doubt. It helps to talk to someone who understands exactly what you're going through. We've started meeting regularly for coffee to discuss our situations and offer each other support. Jake found out about my coffee meetings with Tom through his mother, who had seen us together at the local cafe. He immediately accused me of having an affair with Tom, saying I was no better than him. The irony of his accusation was astounding. He couldn't see the difference between me finding support in someone going through the same situation and his pattern of pursuing emotional affairs with married women. I'm now seriously considering filing for divorce. I don't see how I can ever trust Jake again, knowing this isn't just about Sarah but a pattern of behavior that he's unwilling to acknowledge as problematic. His mother keeps calling me, telling me that all marriages have rough patches and that I'm throwing away years of history over nothing, but I can't see this as nothing anymore. Update 3: I finally filed for divorce last week. After months of going back and forth and dealing with Jake's manipulation, I realized I couldn't spend the rest of my life policing my husband's relationships with other women. The constant anxiety and paranoia about who he was texting or meeting were destroying my mental health. When I had my lawyer serve Jake with the divorce papers at his office, he completely lost it. That evening, he showed up at my sister's house completely drunk. He was banging on the door, crying and yelling about how I was making a huge mistake. He kept saying he would change, that he would go to therapy and work on his issues. My sister had to threaten to call the police before he finally left. The next day, Jake started bombarding me with text messages and emails. He even sent me a long letter detailing all our good memories together and promising he would never speak to another woman again if I just gave him one more chance. But his promises rang hollow, especially when I found out through a mutual friend that he was still having lunch with Sarah at work, even after all that had happened. Sarah and Tom are also getting divorced. Tom told me that after he confronted Sarah with the evidence, she tried to blame everything on Jake, claiming he had pursued her and she was just being nice. When that didn't work, she tried to convince Tom that I was the real problem, that I had manipulated him into believing things that weren't true. Tom saw through her lies and filed for divorce. Tom and I have continued our friendship through all of this. We meet regularly for coffee to support each other through our divorces. Last week, Jake saw us together at our usual cafe and completely lost it. He stormed in and started accusing me of having planned this whole thing to get with Tom. He claimed that I had made up the emotional affair story to justify leaving him for Tom. The irony of Jake accusing me of having an emotional affair wasn't lost on me or the other customers in the cafe who witnessed his outburst. I've blocked Jake's number and all his social media accounts. He tried creating new accounts to contact me, but I blocked those too. His mother still tries to reach out occasionally, now switching between guilt-tripping me about throwing away my marriage and threatening that I'll regret this decision when Jake finds someone new who appreciates him properly. The most surprising development has been the reactions from our mutual friends. Many of them have taken Jake's side, suggesting that I'm overreacting to what they see as harmless flirtations. Some have even started spreading rumors that I'm dating Tom, completely ignoring the fact that both of us are still legally married and just supporting each other through a difficult time. Through all of this, I've learned something important: sometimes walking away is the strongest thing you can do. Jake's actions showed me that he values the thrill of pursuing other women more than he values our marriage. His pattern of emotional affairs and his refusal to take responsibility for his actions made me realize that staying would only lead to more heartbreak. My divorce should be finalized in a few months. I'm focusing on healing and rebuilding my life. Tom has been a great friend through all of this, and I'm grateful for his support, but I know I need time to work on myself before even thinking about dating again. For now, I'm just taking it one day at a time and learning to trust my instincts again. Jake's latest attempt to contact me was through our dog's veterinarian of all places. He tried to get information about when I bring our dog in for checkups. Thankfully, the vet's office respected my privacy and didn't share any information with him. I've since changed vets just to be safe. These desperate attempts to maintain control over my life only confirm that I made the right decision in leaving.